Taking risks with money and working so hard that family and health become low priority will lead to short-lived riches. Being rich means having money, but being wealthy means having quality of life. If you put everything else in your life on hold to make money, you may get rich, but you'll probably hate your life. Look, I'm a coal miner's son. My great-grandfather, my grandfathers, and my dad, they were all coal miners as well. Well, this means that they knew hard work and they knew risking their life. But what you got to recognize is I didn't come from money, and I want to change my family's destiny and financial future. So I didn't have any pedigree or a handbook or any money handed down. I just had a loving, caring family. So wherever you're starting or wherever you're going, let me help you to avoid some of the missteps and mistakes and embrace the things that are going to give you meaningful, lasting wealth. By age 27, I owned a successful business, had some real estate, I had an oil and gas investment, had a hard money lending fund, which is bridge financing to finance for other real estate deals, and I was building a 3-story commercial building, and I was just about to hit the Inc. 500 list. Sounds pretty great. But in reality, I was lost and misguided. I was seeking approval and societal success through money and external validation. And I was trying to prove my worthiness in my career as I chased that, which didn't even matter that much. Because honestly, I neglected my family, I neglected my health, and it was pretty damaging. I wouldn't have admitted any of that at the time, but I was growing pretty miserable. I was definitely stressed, and the 2008 recession was looming around the corner. See, if you're gonna strive and hustle and do all that, that's gonna leave people kind of in a bad position, because most people that are striving are actually scared and lost, and they're running to an empty promise. That promise of accolades and societal success and more money will equal more prestige and more happiness. But what it will bring is a lot more problems, a lot more complications, and if you neglect these other things in your life, it may be extraordinarily short-lived. So taking on too much means you're going to be overworked. Following all the far too many books and so-called gurus that tell you have to hustle and grind, it's going to leave you trapped. It's actually likely to leave you empty and afraid, because if you identify with all the things that you've built and all those accolades, and there's ever any interruption or cash crunch or economy change, well, you're going to be in a pretty frail place that can lead to pretty destructive thinking. So no matter how much more I could get, there would always be a reason to feel like I could do more, have more, be more. And underneath all that was even a feeling of failure, because there was always someone out there that had done it a little bit better, or had a bigger story, or had a bigger business. So what can you do instead, and how can you achieve wealth? Well, let me break this down into 3 simple parts for you. Number 1, rich is definitely about having a lot of money. But being rich and wealthy is not an either-or. Wealth is different. It begins with this fundamental belief of scarcity. Scarcity is that competitive nature where someone believes it's a zero-sum game, winner takes all, and it's all about how you can outwork or out-hustle to get something. In scarcity, fear, doubt, and worry are the mantra. Scarcity has this belief that there's a finite pie, and if one person has a piece, that's less for everybody else. And in that place, it's the hustle, it's the grind, it's the, if I'm sleeping, someone else is making money. If I'm not working harder, someone's working harder than me. If I don't have more, then I'm worth less. That scarcity drives society in a negative fashion. So let's look at the other side, abundance. Abundance is a belief in innovation, ingenuity, and value creation. It's a belief that even if there's a finite amount of money, there's an infinite number of times that money can exchange hands. And that exchange through value creation creates more wealth, not less. So abundance is actually that you could be wealthy and you can have it all. And what that means is we look into something called the 5 tracks of wealth. So being rich only looks at one of the tracks, and that's how much money do you have. But the 5 tracks also looks at purpose. It looks at, mindset. It looks at your health, and it looks at your social life. So finance, purpose, mindset, physicality and health, and then social life. So it's about having depth and harmony in all 5 of those areas. It's not about balance, because you guys are out of balance right now watching this. We're always out of balance. That's not the goal. There's no such thing as perfection. Perfection is a plague that drives us to constantly strive and never enjoy. It's never about the space in between and where we're at today. It's always on the horizon of once I get there, then I'll be happier. That if, then, when mindset destroys humanity. not builds it up. So in the 5 tracks of wealth, it's being intentional. That's what I mean by having harmony, is you're being intentional about what you want your life to look like, defining it on your terms, not letting society dictate what it is. That depth is being present. It's not wishing the past were different or chasing a future and running away from who you are and what you've been. Like, those places aren't where happiness is. Those aren't healthy and healing places. They're very harmful psyches that is propagated through the media and through the consumeristic society that probably began way back in the times of Edward Bernays. He was Sigmund Freud's nephew that was hired by presidents, and his job was to create consumerism. It was that notion that you got to have a house with a picket fence and a certain number of cars. It's the keeping up with the Joneses, that we have to have these appearances of wealth instead of having these feelings of significance or value creation. And 5 tracks of wealth looks that in the eye and says, you know what? It's about what wealth means to you. Wealth is a state of being. Wealth is about healthy living. Wealth is about enjoying life along the way. And it isn't one-dimensional either. Sure, money's a big part of it. Money's a lot like air. You know, when it's not around, it's pretty damn suffocating. But when there's plenty of it, you don't have to focus so much on it, so you can look at value creation. You can look at impact. You can consider legacy. You're not just looking at your own needs and necessity. It's beyond that when it's filled up, where you can say, how can I contribute to others? It moves from me to we. Now, I'll give you time where I had this epiphany. It was July 3rd, 2008. I remember I was really, for the first time, going to have a year after a decade where my business was in decline rather than growing. And it was a year that I hit the Inc. 500. And so I had all these external validations that looked like wealth from the car that I drove, from the home that I lived in. And the reality was, what I was most excited about, even though this was the first time I had a cash flow crunch and was having money troubles, is that I was launching my book, Killing Sacred Cows, which felt like purpose. Like, I was so excited to get that out there and help people defeat the financial myths that were holding them back, to give them a book that was a permission to succeed and invest in themselves, to discover and uncover their sole purpose and understand that money was a part of the equation, but not the only part of the equation. And at the same time, I had the right mindset because of that level of excitement. I was on the mornings getting up and doing a daily ritual to protect and be more abundant. I was in innovation and creation mode. And at the same time, my health was getting better. We were about to go to a barbecue for the 4th of July. And I remember eating really healthy and feeling good and swimming around the pool with my son on my back and feeling really strong. And ultimately, I'm just going to go then hang out with my family that night. We had 4th of July plans. Everything was dialed in, other than my bank account had never been that low. My bank account was low because I didn't mind my cash flow along the way, and because I didn't change my the economics and the cash position moving into recession, which right now we're in a very similar situation. But I knew it was temporary if I stuck to principle. I knew it was temporary if I considered wealth comprehensively and didn't just look at chasing money or identifying who I was within my money. So in order for you to consider what wealth is to you, let me ask a few questions. If money were of no concern, what would you do each day in your life? What would matter most? Would you continue on the path that you're on? Are you in the career that you want to be in? Are you facing any regrets because of the time that you do or don't spend with loved ones, or the time that you do or don't take care of yourself, right? And have that self-care? And, you know, look, if money were of no concern for me, going back and asking, I said, well, I wouldn't have done real estate. Are there investments outside of intellectual property? Because writing Killing Sacred Cows was a critical moment in my life. It changed the relationships I had and the things I'd been learning to share it with people and watch the impact it made in people's lives. You know, at that time, I would have valued leisure and art more, like playing guitar and writing and going to my cabin and being in nature. But I was too busy before that in the grind. So yeah, at 2008 was kind of this line of demarcation. So if you're facing economic turmoil or crisis right now, amidst COVID and all the chaos happening in 2020, now's the time for you to really reinvestigate, ask yourself these questions, and say, what's the next chapter of your life going to be? Now, let's get to the second simple step, which is understanding the money myths that hold us back. And once we understand this, you can let go of these myths, and I call it let go to grow. Killing Sacred Cows was about this. As a matter of fact, if you want Killing Sacred Cows, download it on me. wealthfactory.com/megakit, MEGAKIT. I'll even give you another book, What Would the Rockefellers Do?, that's being updated into What Would Billionaires Do, that you can do regardless of the financial situation that you're in. These are my contributions to you. But let's look at these subconscious money myths that are holding people back. A big one is a lot of people believe money is the root of all evil. It's a saying that you'll hear. Some people quote it as biblical, but the reality is, yeah, it's in the Bible, but there's more to the statement. The love of money is the root of all evil. It's when people love money over people versus love people and use money. Yet there's people that have this belief that money is the root of all evil, but they're conflicted because they actually want more of it. Because money allows us to exchange with other people, allows us to to be able to engage and buy food, or go do things of leisure and have fun, or have a home and a roof over our head, right? Or be able to have internet. There's so many things that money can allow us to do, but if we believe it's the root of all evil, we're going to remain conflicted, and that subconscious belief is going to continually diminish and destroy wealth for the individual. Now, look, I saw that growing up as a kid. I woke up in our camping trailer once by myself, and there was this little plaque on the wall that had a devil that said, "Money's the root of all evil." I'm like, oh, that's like that etched into my mind and kind of scared me. But if we really start to understand money as a byproduct of value creation, as a place that we store whatever we've created value in the past, that we haven't redeemed that value for ourselves, well, first, it doesn't dictate what we do moving forward, but it gives us access to goods, services, and experiences because of the value that we create. That is, as long as you're not involved in deception, coercion, or you're against the principles of prosperity. Which, if you're watching this video, I don't think you're that kind of person. So the good news is you can have more money and be great. It's not mutually exclusive. Money and prosperity can actually be of the most spiritual people. Like, I look at Mother Teresa, right? People think that she had a vow of poverty, and look, I get it. She gave all of her money to eradicate poverty. She had such a big mission and vision, but the reality is she flew on, private airplanes. She could walk into any corporation and they would give her money because her vision was so big, and she let money flow through her. It didn't stop when it got to her, which that's where money starts to corrupt people, when it's only about more and bigger and net worth and not about the value that it can deliver. Now, there's other statements and subconscious beliefs like dirty, filthy money, right? And there's plenty of that out there when people are, involved in cartels and money laundering. And the unfortunate thing is, that's the exception to the rule, but most people think it's the rule. That if you have more, it's because you took from someone else. And if there's some downside to capitalism, it's that when people start looking to take rather than give, when people start looking for haves versus have-nots, and they start viewing it as, like, hey, I've got to get mine, or stupid statements like, it's not personal, it's business. That's what people tell you when they just screwed you over, right? So we can look at movies, we can look at statements, and when we think about money, movies about Wall Street make these statements like dirty, filthy money, make it feel true. But look, the individual that's contributing value, that's focused on value for others, rises above that. Money is simply an efficient means of exchange. It's simply a tool instead of the main thing that people are chasing. So instead of asking, how do I make more money? Ask, how do I create more value? Instead of wanting more of what other people have, go out there and create a life that you love, getting clear about what you do to serve other people. But there's other, subconscious beliefs like money changes people. Well, I think, I've heard really famous people like Oprah say money's like a magnifier, right? People that do good can do even more good. It's about enhancing that or showing that energy. So those that are in integrity earn money through value. And if you look at that as a magnifier, where you can redeem other people's services, or you can have a big vision that can make a massive impact, well, then money becomes extraordinarily useful. But if it's something that you're just trying to spend, or something that you're just trying to take, or something that you're willing to sacrifice your integrity over, it's not money that's the problem. It's the individual philosophy. All right, let's talk a little bit more, because I mentioned capitalism, and let's look at it on the far other end, communism. Capitalism leaves others behind, right? It does this when it becomes about competition and destroying others rather than collaboration and cooperation and uplifting others. I believe more in free market than I believe in capitalism, because unfortunately in today's capitalism, it's become more like cronyism, where you have major corporations funding politicians, and then they work in collaboration to stifle other people that are trying to be a startup or bring value out there. And what I'd love to see is more individuals succeed, and it's great because now more than ever, the internet has leveled the playing field. Doesn't matter as much where you're from as it used to, doesn't matter your ethnic background or the level of poverty that you came from. It matters the skill sets you develop and the value you create. But on the other side, let's look at communism. That thing is built upon a lie. Communism isn't about, the heart on top that it claims to be, right? It's not about love. It really gains hold when people want to protect the loved ones they care about, but ends up stealing their future. Because it's not about individual personal responsibility, it's about relying upon a government that can't fulfill the promises that they are actually talking about. And the same happens in almost any economic system. So that's why the key here is personal responsibility. I get communism is appealing in that competition can destroy, right? And it's an illusion of eliminating competition. But honestly, ask the question, how much do you trust any government or your government? What if you put your trust in your skill set? What if you put trust in being a great human being and developing that so you can be part of the solution? Now, look, you can grab my books to dive in deeper at wealthfactory.com/megakit, but let's move to point number 3. Money is a byproduct. It's misleading when it's the ultimate goal. So if that's what you're chasing is money, what creates more money is more value. What keeps it exchanging is service and solving problems. So people that only think about that, what they can do to make more money, a lot of times sacrifice by trading their time for money, or do things that they don't love to do because they think it's going to make them money, or whatever that may be. Don't look at it that way. Look instead about what fulfills you. How can you be of most service? How can you create the most significant value? What if it wasn't just about you? It was about other people. And what if the vision was just beyond, like, if I wanted to boost my profits 10%, great. But if I wanted to show 1 million people how to boost their profits by 10%, that would be extraordinary. So if you're not in the financial situation that you want to be, number 1, check your value creation. Consider a new vision. Think about how you can impact more people or more deeply impact the people that you serve. And the thing that will destroy wealth the fastest is victimhood. Victimhood is where people say, I would be wealthy, but this person's bad, or this person's wrong, or the system's against me. Look, I get there's people that face extraordinary circumstance. There's people that have been in extraordinarily difficult situations, but if you use that situation or circumstance as the card to continually blame your situation for where you're at, it doesn't help you. What if instead you chose a new step moving forward? What if instead you asked the question of how can I be of most value? And rather than blame, start looking for solutions to the problems. Like, there's a global economy out there and it's pretty messed up. There's a lot of chaos going on. No one can really predict what's going to happen with COVID, what's going to happen with an overly consumeristic lending-based society that doesn't have as much value creation, where people are just printing and adding money to an economy. That feels complicated and overwhelming. But your personal economy is something you do something about right now. You can help your fellow man, the person that's in front of you. You can start offering services. You could even give something away for free to build a reputation and to get referrals. Whatever that may be, the bottom line is, in order to be wealthy, responsibility is key. You start by getting rich without losing what is important in life. So let me give you the top 10 rules to get rich. Number 1, you must invest in yourself. Number 2, you must take personal responsibility. Number 3, you must create recurring revenue, that income that happens month in and month out versus having to go to work the next day, otherwise there's no income coming in. Number 4, you've got to have liquidity, you've got to have savings and safety and stability. At least 6 months it's available to you. And if it's not there yet, it's time to get to work on it. Number 5, you must manage risk. The wealthy know it doesn't take high risk to get a high return, yet most of the poor middle class are chasing risk in hopes that they're going to have that lottery syndrome and a bunch of money is going to come their way. You got to learn to manage risk. Number 6, you got to automatically save and deliberately invest. What that means is pay yourself first. Have automatic amount of money go into a certain account. And then when there's enough cash on hand and the right opportunity arises, then you allocate it toward an investment. People have skipped the step of saving and automatically invest and don't save enough. So that way, when there's a crisis or a cash flow crunch, they're in a world of hurt. You've got to automatically save, build that liquidity, and then deliberately invest. Number 7, focus first, diversify later. I know people have been told diversification is key, but diversification is a preservation strategy. Andrew Carnegie said he put all of his eggs in one basket and watch it like a hawk. Focus on your abilities, your investor DNA. What do you already know? How can you expose your skill sets, enhance your skill sets, and monetize those skills to produce more value in the marketplace when you've got more money than you know what to do with? Either A, expand your vision, or 2, start to consider diversification. Number 8, you've got to utilize a team. Nobody has the answers to everything. I've got great tax advisors. I've got amazing legal advisors for the corporate structures I have. I got due diligence type of team to help me with the investments and analyzing what's going on there. I've got cash flow specialists. And look, I started with nothing. I started with a family didn't have a team like that. It's something I built over time. You take your first steps. You can go to wealthfactory.com/private if you want to engage in a team that we've already built, or go out there and build your own. Number 9. You must care more about what's right than who's right. I call this intellectual honesty. When I first started to analyze 401ks, I thought they were amazing. And as we started to look a little bit deeper and see there were some issues with it, I wasn't happy because I was putting money into 401k. I was getting matched in a 401k at the time. I was like, wait, if there are problems, because there's a lot of fees, there's a lot of volatility, there's penalties, there's no cash flow along the way, there's there's a myriad of problems, especially the performance with most of the funds that are fueling this. I just started to get really kind of sick to my stomach. But I was more concerned about what was right than who was right. So if you focus on that, you can learn over time versus defend things that might be myths or that might be missteps, and that you end up learning the hardest way, which is through experience. 10, you gotta learn to say no. You gotta learn to say no to things. There's plenty of investments out there, there's plenty of opportunity. A lot of people chase the wrong ones out of simple scarcity or greed. So when you can say no to things that aren't part of your sole purpose, when you say no to things that aren't part of your investor DNA, then you reserve time for the things that are most important to you, which might be your health, which might be your family, which might be your business, or which might be a certain type of investment that speaks to who you are. Now, to go from rich, those are those rules, to wealth, let's add dimensions of what does it take to build a life you love so that you can make that switch. Well, first is create a vision that you don't want to retire from. When people want to retire, they're not in the right profession. They're not doing things that they love, or maybe it's too physically demanding. That came from an industrial age, especially from a coal mining family, that yes, you want to retire as soon as possible. But what if you're so engaged, you're so excited, you have something that could even outlive you, that you want to work on that for the rest of your life? That is being wealthy. Now, create a vision that's big enough to inspire yourself and others. That's the second point here. A vision big enough that it's not just for you, but other people can help support it. That's where part of the miracle is, where other people go, I love that. How can I contribute? What can I do? And learn to take help. Third thing, do something meaningful regardless of your current circumstance, financially especially, right? What's one thing you can do to serve someone else? What's one thing you do to solve a problem? What's one thing you can do to add value? One person can make a meaningful difference in someone's life if they're just willing to take the steps and make the effort. Number 4, invest in people and your own purpose before you go invest in products that you know nothing about. The next is be a lifelong learner. As soon as you think you've arrived, as soon as you think you know everything, that type of arrogance usually has a big bat that swings and there's a lot of losses. So be careful. Continuing to learn allows you to grow as an individual and manage money a whole lot better. Now, treat yourself as your greatest asset. That's the next point. You are your greatest asset, not a stock, bond, or piece of real estate. So what can you do to invest in yourself, into your mindset, into to the environment that you're in, to the people you spend your time with, and then enjoy the space in between. What if there was nowhere to get, nothing to do? What if you could just look at a moment right now and say, this is great, and just enjoy that space? Because a lot of people, the movie's kind of silly, but Adam Sandler had a movie called Click where he could just fast forward through life and then he misses out on so many things. And a lot of times people want to fast forward through the pain or the difficulty, but sometimes that becomes the ingredient for the vision. Sometimes that becomes the passion of where we're going to move towards and what we can do to help and serve humanity. Then determine what matters most to you and design your life to live on your terms. So the questions are, what does matter to you? Who matters most to you? And what does wealth mean to you? Okay, next point, relax, rejuvenate, and recreate, right? Find ways to enjoy life along the way, not wait till retirement. And love yourself and others. That's the final piece of the wealth aspect. People are the only real asset. Being in a relationship is the greatest gift, whether that's friendship, marriage, mentoring, and make sure you're spending time with the right people that uplift and edify and positively challenge. Because taking risks with money and working so hard that your family and health become a low priority will lead to short-lived riches, and there's never happiness found there. Being rich means having money, but being wealthy means having quality of life too. When you apply these steps in the new rules to get rich, you not only be rich in money, but in experiences and quality of life. Now, you have the knowledge to transform your thoughts into profits and build the life you love. If you're looking for more on this topic, Check out my video on how to get rich in 3 years. You'll learn how to create economic independence and the exact framework in order to get there. I'll see you there.